The dining room buzzed with soft jazz, murmurs of old money, and the clink of crystal stemware. At a corner table lit by a golden chandelier, the billionaire, Lucas Sterling, 43, white, clean-shaven, in a tailored navy suit, swirled a glass of Bordeaux with theatrical boredom. Then came Jamal, 28, black, clean-cut, in pressed waiter blacks, balancing plates with silent dignity. As he approached, Lucas raised one manicured hand without looking. "Took your time, didn't you?" he said. Jamal, used to veiled insults, offered a nod. "Apologies, sir." Lucas looked up, narrowed his eyes, then, without warning, spat directly in Jamal's face. Time slowed. A collective gasp, but, woo. Forks clattered. A phone dropped. Red wine stained the pristine tablecloth. Jamal stood frozen, spit on his cheek, eyes wide. Lucas smirked. "That's how I deal with incompetence." Cameras were already rolling. Before anyone moved, Lucas' phone rang. He glanced at it, and his face went pale. His jaw locked. He didn't answer. He couldn't. Something was wrong. The silence thickened like fog as Lucas stared at the phone. The screen read, "Boardroom, emergency." Jamal hadn't moved, though his fists trembled at his sides. Cameras kept rolling. One woman whispered, "Is he going to hit him?" Lucas's smirk was gone, now replaced by something feral. He stood abruptly, nearly tipping the chair. "Dinner's over," he said to no one, but his voice cracked. Jamal blinked, his jaw tightening. But still, he said nothing. "Not yet." Lucas turned, pacing toward the exit, the phone still vibrating in his hand. The whispers grew louder. One man murmured, "He knows he's done." Jamal finally moved, just a single step back, still watching. Not broken. Just measuring. Not one staff member moved to help Lucas. "ID." The cameras followed him to the door. He paused, breathing heavily, then answered the call. "What the hell is this?" he snapped. Whatever he heard made his eyes widen. Then he sprinted. Outside, Lucas burst into the humid night, the weight of power slipping off him with every step. The valet didn't move. A man with a phone camera followed him, filming from a distance. Lucas's hand trembled as he brought the phone back to his ear. "What do you mean, Jamal Carter?" he asked. "That name's not in the system." A voice answered coldly. "He's in the original patent file. From 7 years ago. And he's in the video." Silence. Then, the board's watching. "Don't come in, just go." Lucas's mouth opened, but no words came. Cars passed behind him. The night didn't care. He turned slowly, and looked back at the glowing restaurant, where Jamal still stood motionless. Then Lucas staggered away, no driver in sight, no command left to give. Inside, the atmosphere had shifted. Jamal slowly walked to the side, vanished into the kitchen without a word. But the damage had already crystallized into legend. Patrons whispered. A waiter shut down the reservation system. The manager looked around nervously, unsure who was in charge. Every table buzzed with speculation, but the focus remained on the single video clip, Jamal's face, composed even with spit trailing down. It was already being shared, dissected, defended. Jamal leaned over a sink, washing his face with icy water. No tears. Just breathing. He checked his phone. 28 missed calls. 2 from a number he didn't recognize. Blah. In the quiet brick room, Jamal sat alone on a bench, his apron folded beside him, phone glowing faintly in his hand. A knock echoed. He didn't answer. The door creaked open slowly. Another waiter, nervous, holding a note. "This came for you," he whispered. Jamal took the folded paper. No name. Just 4 words. "They're watching. Be ready." He stared at it, heartbeat slow and steady now. Not fear. Focus. The humiliation had passed. Now came something else, a cold shift deep in his core. He tucked the note into his pocket and stood. The camera in his phone still recorded silently in his locker. Evidence preserved. Before the restaurant, before the spit, before the phone call, Jamal Carter was a dreamer. In a cramped one-bedroom apartment in East Atlanta, he sat night after night under flickering ceiling lights, sketching code on napkins, drafting designs for a new neural mesh interface. He once believed ideas alone could change the world. But ideas needed backing, and the world didn't back people like him. Rejections stacked up. "We regret to inform you," became his daily gospel. One night his mom, Denise Carter, strong-voiced 50s, tired but unbroken, stood behind him. "You're still writing code on paper," she said. Jamal nodded. The laptop crashed again. Denise sighed, kissed his forehead and whispered, "They won't see your worth until they can't ignore it." Jamal smiled faintly. He didn't believe her. Not yet. But he kept drawing anyway. He always did. Denise Carter had raised Jamal on her own. 3 jobs. 2 buses to get home. 0 safety nets. But every night she came home humming old jazz tunes, never letting the weight of the world show. She hung his childhood drawings on the fridge like museum pieces. When he got accepted to Georgia Tech on scholarship, she cried for the first time in front of him. When he dropped out 2 years later, broken by loans and betrayal, she didn't cry, just sat beside him on the curb. "You're not done. You're paused," she said. Jamal had believed he failed her. But she never said the word failure. Not once. Not even when he started waiting tables, just to help pay for her medication. "Some seeds take longer to grow," she'd whisper. And Jamal, whether he admitted it or not, was still listening. The betrayal still haunted him. Jamal had pitched his neural mesh interface concept to a small tech accelerator during his sophomore year. Naive and desperate for backing, he submitted raw code, schematics, and interface concepts. A month later, his idea was rejected. 2 years later, a prototype eerily similar was unveiled by Prometheus, a rising AI startup. Lucas Sterling was their major investor. Jamal watched the announcement stream on a flickering cafe screen, heart pounding. He stood there, unnoticed, people clapping around him for a design he had drawn on napkins. His name erased. When he reached out, the accelerator claimed no association. He had no money to fight it. Just rage. And silence. And a single manila folder he still kept hidden, filled with original sketches and email timestamps. Back in the present, Jamal sat on the train headed home. The city moved past the windows like a ghost. Blurry lights, unfinished construction, cracked billboards promising luxury. A teenager across the aisle was watching the video. Jamal's face, spit-streaked, paused on a cracked phone screen. "That's him," the boy whispered. Jamal turned away. The pain wasn't about the act anymore. It was the familiarity of being disrespected, of being nothing until exploited, then ignored again. But now eyes were watching. And somewhere deep inside, something unfamiliar stirred. Not shame, not grief, resolve. His phone buzzed. Unknown number. He let it ring. Then it rang again. And again. Jamal finally picked up and said nothing. A voice spoke calmly. "We need to talk, you wrote." Jamal stood at the foot of his apartment building, the night pressing in quiet and thick. He hadn't spoken during the call, just listened. The voice said the board at Prometheus had been alerted, that a whistleblower had sent them an old internal report. Jamal's name, the original design files, email exchanges. It was proof. Lucas had buried it. But not deep enough. "They want to meet," the voice said. "Tomorrow, private." Jamal clenched the phone. His life had shifted in 12 hours, humiliation to revelation. Denise opened the door before he knocked, her eyes scanning him. "Something's changed," she said quietly. Jamal nodded. "Everything's about to." She reached for his hand and said, "Then don't go quiet. Not this time." Jamal didn't answer. But he didn't look away. By sunrise, the video had hit 20 million views. Jamal's name trended worldwide. News outlets scrambled to secure interviews. But Jamal remained silent. In his apartment, he sat in front of his old laptop, reading every headline. Billionaire assaults waiter. The spit heard round the world. Who is Jamal Carter? Commenters split down the middle. Some stood with him, outraged. Others said it was staged, exaggerated, opportunistic. He was either a hero or a hustler, no in between. Denise brewed coffee silently beside him. "Don't let them twist this," she said softly. Jamal didn't look up. "They already are." But something in him had begun to settle, not like dust, but like roots. For the first time in a long time, people were paying attention. And that attention, Jamal knew, was currency. He just had to choose how to spend it. At Promethic's headquarters, the storm was building. Lucas stormed into the executive floor, face pale and twitching, a crumpled printout of the video in his hand. The boardroom fell silent. "It's nothing," he barked. "It's PR, we'll spin it." But the lead investor, Evelyn Cho, 60s, sharp, composed, slid a folder across the table. "You lied," she said flatly. Inside were documents with Jamal's name and date stamped prototype files. Lucas froze. "We buried that." Evelyn's voice didn't rise. "You thought you did. Legal's reopening review. The whistleblower sent it to us." Lucas looked around. No allies, just glassy-eyed executives calculating risk. "You need to step aside," Evelyn said. Lucas laughed bitterly, but no one else did. The walls of power had started to bend inward. Jamal arrived for work like always, wearing his uniform and an expression that betrayed nothing. His co-workers paused. Some avoided eye contact. Others nodded solemnly. The manager, Greg, a wiry man in his 50s with nervous eyes, pulled him aside. We need to have you apologize," he whispered. Jamal blinked. "For what?" Greg glanced around, dropped his voice lower. "For how you handled it. We don't want the restaurant caught in the middle." Jamal laughed once, bitterly. "I got spit on, Greg." Greg looked pained. "There's pressure, man." From upstairs. Jamal took a long breath, nodded like he understood, and then calmly removed his apron. "Tell upstairs I'm done," he said. Greg stammered something about hours and shifts, but Jamal had already walked out. This time he didn't look back. Jamal stepped outside into the daylight like a man shedding skin. His phone buzzed. A text from a blocked number. "We still want to meet. Today, 3 p.m. Private address attached." He exhaled slowly. This wasn't just about justice anymore. It was about reclaiming stolen ground. The moment felt fragile and colossal at once. He opened his locker at home, pulled out the manila folder. Every sketch, every code snippet, every email. The proof that had been dismissed, mocked, buried. He held it all now, hands steady. Denise stood at the door watching. "You ready?" she asked. Jamal met her eyes. "I've been ready. They just didn't know it." He packed the folder into a backpack and zipped it closed. The time for silence was done. It was his voice now, or nothing. In a downtown office tower, high above the streets, Evelyn Cho waited in a private suite. Her assistant whispered, "He's here." She nodded once. The door opened. Jamal walked in, not in a suit, but in his cleanest streetwear, jeans, hoodie, and defiance. Evelyn stood. "Mr. Carter," she said. "I appreciate you coming." He nodded, offered no handshake. The folder hit the table. "This is mine," he said. Evelyn opened it slowly, studying the contents. Her face didn't change, but her voice did. "We owe you, and we're prepared to make it right." Jamal folded his arms. "I'm not looking for an apology. I want ownership, a seat at the table." Evelyn nodded. "We'll talk numbers, but the board agrees. It's time to listen to you." The power shift had begun. Lucas Sterling sat alone in his penthouse office, the city twinkling far below. He was no longer the lion in the glass tower, just a man unraveling. His phone buzzed with a message from an encrypted thread. They found the file. You're exposed. Lucas flinched. He poured whiskey into a glass with shaking hands, but barely tasted it. The mirror behind the bar caught his reflection, gray shadows under his eyes, confidence leaking from the corners of his smirk. He slammed the glass down. I built this, he snarled. He was nothing. But even he could hear the hollow edge in his voice. His assistant texted again. The board's calling for a vote. Lucas knew what that meant. He wasn't just in trouble. He was prey. And the hunter had once served him wine. In a quiet park, just blocks from the Prometheus building, Jamal met the whistleblower. A woman in her late 30s, Latina trench coat and clear eyes. Dr. Marisol Vega. She'd worked at the accelerator that lost Jamal's files. They threatened my visa, she said flatly. Said if I leaked anything, I'd be deported. Jamal listened, stone-faced. Why now? He asked. Marisol handed him a thumb drive. Because I saw your face. And because I kept a copy. Inside the drive were the original uploads, timestamps, code hashes, even audio of a young Jamal pitching the neural mesh in a borrowed suit. His voice cracked with passion in the clip. Jamal held it like it was made of glass. This ends now, Marisol said. Jamal nodded once. His voice, when it came, was calm. No, it starts now. The boardroom was quiet when Lucas entered for what he believed would be his redemption speech. Instead, Evelyn Cho slid a document across the table, a printed copy of the whistleblower testimony, tech audit reports, and Jamal's full submission record. Lucas stood frozen. This is slander, he said, voice cracking. We have a legal team for this. Evelyn didn't blink. It's truth. And truth has power now. The board members, once silent allies, looked down at their tablets, reading every damning line. You'll resign today, Evelyn continued. Or we'll vote you out. Publicly. Lucas's breath quickened. You're going to hand this company to a waiter? Evelyn smiled faintly. To a visionary who you stole from. Lucas didn't sit. He just turned. And walked out the door with nothing. Lucas didn't go home. He wandered the streets of downtown, aimless. Once, a group of tourists recognized him. One snapped a photo. That's the guy from the video, someone yelled. Lucas fled into an alley, breathing hard, shoulders heaving. His empire, once untouchable, had collapsed overnight. As he sat on a low concrete ledge, his phone vibrated. An anonymous number. He answered. A voice whispered, "Justice doesn't need courtrooms." Click. Silence. Lucas threw the phone, watched it shatter. He was alone now. Not in the poetic sense, but actually alone. And worse, irrelevant. Somewhere, Jamal's voice was climbing. And no matter how loud Lucas screamed, no one was listening. That afternoon, Jamal stood alone outside the Prometheus tower. No cameras. No fanfare. Just him, and a moment he never thought would come. He pulled the thumb drive from his pocket, holding it up toward the mirrored glass. A symbolic gesture, private and profound. Inside that drive was the life they tried to erase. He exhaled slowly. The elevator doors opened. He stepped in, surrounded by silence and polished chrome. The floor numbers blinked upward. Denise's words echoed in his mind. Don't go quiet. At the top floor, Evelyn waited, glass doors open behind her. Jamal stepped through. No fear. No hesitation. He wasn't knocking anymore. He was entering. The conference room was stark and silent, glass walls, leather chairs, and a view that stretched for miles. At one end sat Evelyn Cho and 3 senior board members. Me. At the other, Jamal, no longer just the wronged man, but a force they couldn't deny. The thumb drive sat in the center of the table like a detonator. Evelyn leaned forward. We're prepared to offer settlement, back pay, equity, and full public acknowledgement. Jamal's voice was calm. "I'm not here for favors. I'm here for control. You stole from me. Now I lead." One of the older men scoffed. Evelyn raised a hand to silence him. "He's earned it." Jamal unfolded a blueprint from his backpack, a new upgrade, version far beyond what Prometheus had built. "This is next," he said. "But not under your name." And for the first time, no one interrupted him. Lucas burst into the room, uninvited, breathless, sweating. "You can't do this," he snapped, pointing at Jamal. "This isn't his company." Evelyn didn't stand. "Lucas, you were told not to return." Lucas ignored her, stepping closer to Jamal. "You're a waiter. I made you relevant." Jamal slowly rose from his chair. Calm, unmoved. "You made me visible. That's not the same as power." Lucas lunged, grabbing the blueprint. Jamal didn't flinch. "You're done stealing." Security stepped in, pulling Lucas back as he shouted, "He doesn't belong here." Jamal turned toward him, voice steady as iron. "I didn't belong at your table, so I built my own." The room remained silent as Lucas was escorted out. No applause, just the sound of one man finally collapsing under his own weight. After Lucas was removed, Evelyn turned back to Jamal. "Let's talk terms," she said. Jamal leaned over the table, unrolling a second document, his own company charter. "I'm not joining Prometheus," he said. "I'm building a lab. You can invest, or you can compete." One board member chuckled. "You're bluffing." Jamal looked him dead in the eye. "You saw what I built alone. Imagine what I'll do with funding." Silence. Then Evelyn pushed a card across the table. "Call me when you're ready." Jamal picked up his folder and stood. "I already am." He walked out, shoulders squared, heart steady. He didn't need revenge. He needed freedom. And this was the moment he claimed it. Jamal returned to the neighborhood that raised him, not for nostalgia, but purpose. He walked past boarded-up shops, cracked sidewalks, and kids dribbling a half-flat basketball. One of them paused, pointing. "That's the guy from the video." Another added, "He's the one who stood up." Jamal crouched beside them. "You ever get spit on and still stand taller after?" The boys nodded slowly, unsure how to respond. He smiled. "Then you're already winning." Behind them, Denise watched from the steps, arms folded, eyes misty. She'd seen him broken, angry, silent. But today, she saw something new. A man who refused to stay small. Jamal looked back at her and nodded once. She didn't speak. She didn't have to. That evening, Jamal stood on a rented rooftop space, the city skyline burning behind him in gold. In front of a small invited crowd, investors, engineers, friends, he presented the official launch of his startup, Origin Neural Systems. No suit. No corporate polish. Just truth. "They told me I was too small to matter," he said. "Now they want a piece of what they tried to erase." He clicked the remote. The screen behind him lit up with the next-gen neural mesh schematic, sleek, revolutionary, entirely his. The crowd clapped. Denise sat in front, smiling through tears. And somewhere in a shadowed corner, a camera rolled silently. This was no viral clip. This was history. Built not by revenge, but vision. In a closed shareholder meeting streamed internally to Prometheus global offices, Lucas Sterling's resignation was officially announced. No press release. No farewell statement. Just a sterile slide titled, "Leadership Transition." Evelyn addressed the group with composure. "Innovation cannot come from theft. The future belongs to those we tried to silence." Jamal watched from a private office, arms folded, silent. He hadn't asked for this ending, but it had arrived just the same. One line in Evelyn's closing remarks stayed with him. "The cost of arrogance is silence at the top." Later, Lucas' office was cleared out by interns who weren't even told his name. He left with no plaque, no portrait, no legacy, just a cardboard box and a door that didn't lock behind him. A week later, Jamal stood before a small team in a converted warehouse. Origin Neural Systems had found its first home: concrete floors, exposed pipes, mismatched desks. But the energy buzzed like electricity. Engineers, designers, even a few interns from his old neighborhood surrounded him. He didn't give a grand speech. Just 5 words. Let's build something that lasts. The team clapped, not because he asked them to, but because they believed. A whiteboard behind him showed the word vision underlined 3 times. This wasn't about competing anymore. It was about redefining the game entirely. He didn't want to chase their version of greatness. He was crafting his own. Back at home, Denise placed a framed newspaper front page on the wall above their old couch. The headline, "From Waiter to CEO." Jamal pretended not to notice, but the soft smile on his face gave him away. She placed her hand over his. "Now they can't ignore you," she whispered. Jamal replied, "They never saw me. They just saw what they feared." Denise nodded, then turned on the old record player. Nina Simone filled the air. To be young, gifted and black. For the first time in years, Jamal didn't feel like he was carrying weight. He was holding ground. The music wasn't background. It was the anthem of a life reclaimed. At a nearby community center, Jamal gave his first open talk. No stage, no script. Just folding chairs and worn-out floors. Kids sat in front, legs crossed, wide-eyed. "Every no I heard became a lesson," he said. "Every time I was told to wait, I learned how to build without permission." He held up a napkin from his early sketches. "This right here started everything. I kept it. Because ideas don't die when they're ignored. They die when we stop defending them." A boy in the back raised his hand and asked, "What do I do if no one listens?" Jamal smiled. "Talk anyway. And if they don't hear you, build something too loud to ignore." The room exploded in applause. Far from the spotlight, Lucas watched the broadcast from a dingy motel room, news clip showing Jamal speaking at the community center. The room was dark, a single lamp buzzing overhead. Lucas looked smaller now, unshaven, worn, irrelevant. The anchor's voice said, "A symbol of resilience in the face of systemic erasure." Lucas muted the screen. He picked up an old prototype chip from his briefcase, turning it over in his fingers. It was the design Jamal had drawn first. Now, it bore his name. But legacy doesn't live in ownership. It lives in memory. Lucas placed the chip on the nightstand, leaned back, and stared at the ceiling. No words. Just silence. And the sound of someone else's future playing on every channel. Jamal adjusted the mic on the stage as murmurs quieted. He stood before a packed auditorium, not a tech summit, but a high school gym filled with future dreamers. No lights, no PR team, just folded bleachers and open hearts. Behind him glowed a giant screen. The future is built, not bought. He looked into the crowd, into eyes that reminded him of his own reflection just a year ago. Young, tired, unseen. They'll tell you to wait, to earn your seat, but some of us were born to build the table instead. He paused. Don't let power scare you. It's just a tool. Like code, like wire. You give it meaning. A girl in the front row wiped her eyes. Jamal smiled, not to impress, but because he meant every word. In that gym, he wasn't a CEO. He was proof. After the talk, Jamal stepped outside into the golden light of late afternoon. He walked alone down the sidewalk, hoodie pulled over his head, unnoticed by most. A group of kids ran past laughing, one of them waving a small homemade robot. He smiled. Somewhere an old busker played a change is gonna come on a saxophone, notes echoing down the alleyways. His phone buzzed. A message from Evelyn. Your prototype is already outperforming Prometheus. He didn't reply. He just looked up at the sky, soft clouds, gentle breeze, and breathed. Not like a man escaping, but like someone finally inhabiting his own life. The world wasn't perfect, but it was listening. And now, it would have to listen in his language. In a quiet lab at Origin Neural Systems, A new team of engineers gathered around a test table. A sleek neural mesh interface prototype sat blinking with soft blue light. They waited. Jamal entered last, calm and focused. "Let's change the way people think," he said. Literally and figuratively. As the prototype activated, data streamed into a monitor, mapping thoughts into signals, fluid and elegant. One engineer whispered, "It's faster than anything on the market." Jamal didn't celebrate. He simply nodded and watched the code dance. Not for ego, for progress. In the glow of the interface, the future wasn't a dream, it was here. Real. Accessible. Built by the very hands they tried to erase. Far away, in an exclusive event hall in New York, Lucas sat alone among a sea of unfamiliar faces. A Tech Awards gala played across towering screens. The host announced Jamal's name. Applause thundered. Lucas didn't clap. His tablemates didn't know him. Once that stage would have belonged to him. Now, Jamal walked across it, not in vengeance but in ownership. He wore no suit, no tie, just the hoodie and calm that had become his armor. "I wasn't supposed to be here," he said into the mic. "But I came anyway." The room erupted. Lucas lowered his eyes. No cameras turned to him. No one remembered. He had become what he feared most, silent and forgotten. Later that night, Jamal stood at the edge of a rooftop alone, city lights glowing around him. He looked out, not down, not back, just forward. He held no trophy, no speech cards. Just his mother's voice in memory, "Don't go quiet." And he hadn't. Not for them, not for himself, but for everyone who'd ever been told to wait, to shrink, to be thankful for scraps. He took out his phone and pressed record. "They'll rewrite your story if you don't write it yourself," he said. "So start now." He ended the clip, uploaded it, and let it go. No hashtags. No branding. Just truth. The camera panned out slowly, revealing the full skyline beneath him, alive, waiting. And so was he.